Hello everybody! Welcome to another video. My name is Megan. I'm the Moodery Queen. And today we are going to be doing the same video that I think everyone in the entire world has done. But I'm doing it anyway, and that is ranking the Bridgerton books. I just find it so fascinating, so to kind of go off on a tangent slightly here. I know a lot of people who read the series. And so, of course, people on BookTube that I've been following, but people in my own life that once we started talking about, historical romances, I realized more people read them than I thought. And it's so interesting to me to see, what each person's favorite is and what that says about them, like the things that they like, the kind of characters that they like. And I'm just so intrigued by that. My favorite is definitely a lot of people's favorite, but I think probably for a lot of the same reasons, honestly. But at the same time, it might be somebody else's favorite for other reasons. And so I don't want to do this ranking to discount anybody else's feelings, but I've watched quite a few ranking videos, and I just think I just am fascinated by seeing what other people think. And obviously Bridgerton is not going anywhere. Season 3 and 4, I think, have already been confirmed. They're currently filming season 3. I will try not to talk about the show very much. I said that in my last Julia Quinn video. People have talked about it enough. We know how we feel, right? But anyway, so let's get started. I've got 5 of the books in physical copies, but 3 of them I don't. So I'll put those up on the screen when it's time. So, surprising no one. Well, if you've watched any of the other videos, I would hope that you'd have me pegged at this point. But if it's coming as a surprise, oh well. And my favorite book is The Viscount Who Loved Me. What do I love about this book? I made myself look at my original. I don't know about you guys, but I try to write Goodreads reviews for the books I read. Sometimes I get into slumps and I don't do it. And then it's so hard sometimes for me to recapture what I felt. This one really isn't too difficult. But immediately after finishing it, I knew this was going to be my favorite. And in the series, it has not been unseated. I really do love a lot of her other books. So you should check out. Maybe I'll try the thing where I put it in the cards. I have no idea. But I did do another video that was Julia Quinn related. So maybe I'll try that. Maybe I already did. I don't know. Okay, so anyway, why do I love this book? Let's try to spend less than 5 minutes per book. Good God. Okay, I love the witty repartee, the banter. I love how both Anthony and Kate, I'm going to say Anthony, so just sorry, they think they have the other person figured out, but they really don't. And then both of them are opposed to what's going on between them, but they can't stop it. I love that Anthony has a sense of responsibility towards his family. I love that he's afraid that he doesn't want to hurt other people if something were to happen to him. He's convinced he's going to die young, like his father. I think there was an uncle as well that died young. He doesn't want to hurt anyone. And more so than that, though, I love what he and Kate find together and how he has to come to the realization that he has fallen in love with her and what is he going to do about it? And it is not anything. So if you're watching this and you're like, I've never read the books and I've only seen the show. You've probably heard this everywhere, but the show for season 2 is almost nothing like the book. After the 3rd episode, they sort of throw the book in the trash. And I can understand some of that. Some of that I really struggled with. But forget anything you think you know about Kate and Anthony and their families and people who are close to them, their actions in the show. That really, a lot of that is not present at all in this book. So I love it for those reasons. I love they try to take care of each other. And yeah, it's just so good. And one thing people don't talk about enough is the comedy. These books are hilarious. Well, most of them. Some of them are boring, but we'll talk about that later. there's just so many funny scenes, particularly when they meet. The meet cutes are really well done. So I won't say a lot about this one. It's a great story. It's a human story. I just related so much to Kate and Anthony, and it's just a great book. So definitely my favorite of the series. So then my second favorite, so two, the top, I probably should have done the opposite direction, shouldn't I? Whatever. We're just going to go 1 to 8. Okay. So my second favorite is The Duke and I. And of course, I mean, this is the first book in the series, of course, the first season of the show. I like this for a lot of the same reasons. I do think that Kate and Anthony in book 1 feel more fully formed as characters, more human. I do love Simon and Daphne, especially the way that he has issues with a stutter, and that I think is dealt better with. The book deals with it better than the show does. And then what else did I love about it? Let me see. I'm rechecking my own thoughts here. The book, Simon is not as intense in the book, and I like that because, I mean, we all love a really intense, brooding Darcy type character, but also what are you going to talk about sometimes, And of course, Darcy, I'm sure, opens up once he and Elizabeth are together. If you don't know what I'm talking about, Pride and Prejudice, just go check it out. But Simon in this is more carefree. He laughs more. There's some really funny scenes between he and Daphne. Of course, you have a complication of whether or not they're going to have children. And, does he want that sort of a future with her? Because he's got some hang-ups with his father, and the kind of man he was, and how Simon was treated as a child, and how he really doesn't want to. He wants to break the cycle, basically. And it's a great book. Highly, highly recommend the whole series, honestly. But the first half of the series, I think, is stronger than the second half. But that's my second favorite. My third favorite is one that you're not going to hear people talk about very much, and I will make sure to put it over here. So my third favorite is It's in His Kiss, which is actually the 7th book, and that is Hyacinth's story. And no one talks about Hyacinth, and, I think it's interesting that I like this book, because it's usually lower down on people's lists. And in fact, I was talking to a friend today about my ranking, because we were talking about recording this video, and she's like, oh my gosh, Hyacinth just drove me nuts. And I felt that way about other characters and other books that she liked more. So I think that's super interesting. But what did I love about Hyacinth? First of all, I'm pulling up my Goodreads review from back in the day, year and a half ago. And the very first words are, I loved Hyacinth, all caps. If you have watched the show, Hyacinth is basically first season Eloise, and I mentioned this in my other video, so I won't get into a ton of depth on it, but she's spunky and energetic and maybe a little ditzy sometimes. Just super likable. I liked her a lot. And she has that sort of outgoing personality that Eloise had, I felt, quite a bit in the first season. Second season, Eloise was not my fave. Eloise in the books is quite different. So Hyacinth's story is about hijinks, basically. She and her love interest break into his father's house. There's a pants-wearing scene where she has breeches on and he, loses his shit. There is, they know they like each other. Whereas, in Anthony and Kate's story, they're both aware that they like each other, but they're trying to stop themselves, Anthony especially, because he wants to protect himself and other people from pain. Simon and Daphne struggle to communicate whether or not they like each other for real. And then when they're able to, they have a great relationship, but there's still some miscommunication and some assumptions. And then with Hyacinth and Gareth, they just had this sweet, easy thing, and it was nice to read. And Hyacinth is just funny, and there's a scene where they're stuck in a closet, and they're afraid they're going to get discovered. And it's just a fun book, and it's not too complicated. I mean, it's not like going to win any awards, but it's a good time. And there is, I think the reason I gave it 3, like, out of, my 8 ranking, Gareth ends up doing something that, like, he probably shouldn't do. At the same time, they were pretty much set to be together anyway, so you'll see if you read it. Then my 4th book is To Sir Philip with Love. And that, do I have that one? No. That is Eloise's book. And I liked this book because I'm a sucker for the Sound of Music, Maria, Captain Von Trapp narrative. Kind of stoic man, has issues communicating verbally, but feels deeply. And the girl who is, like, going to get what she wants. And that is kind of what this is. So Eloise and Sir Philip have been writing together back and forth for a year after she contacts him after the death of his wife. And they just talk, and he, like, loves plants and botany and stuff. And she's lonely. In the timeline of the first, it's interesting to see the timeline of these books, and some of them very much overlap, and then some of them don't. And so she goes to stay with him without him knowing. And, of course, they're compromised as a result and have to get married. But he's got these twins that they cause some issues, like frogs in beds and stuff. But she grew up with 7 siblings, and she knows how to duke it out with the rest of them. And it's a sweet story. And I love the love letters. Like, they are basically love letters. Like, they were getting there. If she'd waited a while, I think he probably would have said something. But she, like, jumped the gun. She's like, I'm going for it. We're seizing the day. And so they basically write love letters to each other, and it's super cute. Then my 5th favorite is Romancing Mr. Bridgerton. And I actually have that one. I've been trying to collect them. But, I'm not, like, I just find them when I can, basically. I'm not, like, super, motivated, because I already have them on my Kindle. So this is about, of course, Penelope and Colin. This book I had higher expectations for based on the show. And if you've seen the show, you know that they hype up the Penelope and Colin thing. Penelope plays a larger role in the show than she does in the books by far. A lot of this is like, this is what happened before we picked up with them today. Like, not like flashbacks, although there are some. But it's a lot of, this is how things used to be between us. And, Colin comes back from close to a decade, probably abroad, off and on. And, Penelope has been pining for him for quite a while, but she's basically given up. At this point, let me look it up. I think she's 28. And I will say, I really did. Anybody who reaches their late 20s, and at least in today's day and age, you're reaching your late 20s, your friends are getting married, they're having kids. I've dealt with this. I know so many people have. But even though we're distanced from this time period by like 200 years, you still feel that, is it 200 years? I think it's 200 years. The same things that Penelope was feeling. Like, I'm on the shelf now. It's over for me. It's not going to happen. And granted, it was more intensive then, right? Women didn't really have a lot of opportunities in terms of jobs. I mean, the gender roles were really terrible. But I do relate to her in this. So she's been, at this point, Lady Whistledown for 11 years. Also, spoiler alert, the Lady Whistledown storyline matters not at all in the books. Like, not at all, until you get to this one. And then there's a little bit of who's Lady Whistledown? Let's figure it out thing. It doesn't matter at all, which I get that the show needs to have, I guess, some other drama, but whatever. I was not a fan. God, I'm coming across so negatively. Let's see. I'm looking through my notes. Oh, there's a scene where she tells Colin that she's afraid that she's going to die never having been kissed. Oh my god. It was good. But it's disappointing because it suffers from a pacing problem, which some of Julia Quinn's books, I do love her books. But I think I've given higher ratings to maybe some of her other series more than the Bridgerton books. One day I'll do a deep dive on Julia Quinn, but I have to finish reading all her books first. But the book moves very slowly and very quickly at the same time. It has a pacing problem where there's so much that's happened, but like not really, that between them, it's just more of a realization. Like Penelope knows that she likes Colin, but she's given up on the idea. But Colin has this realization. And then they're together like way early, which that does happen in a lot of historical romances. And then you have like other resolution that has to come. So it definitely suffers from a pacing problem, but at the same time, Colin is fantastic and funny and sweet, and he loves to eat food. And I, like, literally, there was not a scene where Colin wasn't eating. I loved it. It was funny. But it just doesn't live up to that sort of, like, it doesn't live up to what I thought it was going to be after having seen Colin and Penelope in the show. Which, a lot of the other relationships, like, I didn't have any frame of reference for in the show. So when I read the books, like, it didn't matter to me. I was ready to see it as it was. But of course, with the first book, I compared to the show, found the first book better. And then this one, I compared to, at the time, just the portrayal of Colin and Penelope in the show. So they obviously hype it up a little bit. And though some of their interactions are based on things that did happen in the past in this book, like, I don't know. They're better in the show, I think. But, and this is a quick tirade about spinsterhood. I am kind of mad that the next season of the show is going to be Colin and Penelope, because at this point, Penelope is like, what, 19 years old? Colin's maybe like 24, 25. She hasn't fucking pined enough. Like, seriously. This book is about her being a spinster. Like, she is legit on the shelf. It's over. Like, it's over. There's nothing. Like, it's not like her being over dramatic. Like, no. This is the rest of her life. She's 28, and there is, like, no romantic future. I'm sorry, Penelope, who came out as Lady Whistledown in the very first season when she was, like, 17 years old. You don't get to fucking complain about not being with your one true love when you're 19, okay? Okay. Like, sorry. So I'm really pissed because that's the whole point of this book, is that each one of these, like, you have different representation going on, and granted, there's not the super best representation, but there is some. You know, you have younger heroines and older, and you know, the guys have different issues that they're dealing with as well, and she is supposed to be a spinster, and she's not gonna be in the show, and I'm pissed about it. So there's that. You didn't sign up for it. I'm so sorry. But I do like this. It is a good book. I don't want to throw people off it, but I think this is more powerful if you relate to her more. And she's also supposed to be plus size. I think she's on the smaller end of plus size, but that's okay. Representation is representation. Although, at the same time, if you accept not great representation and don't demand better, you know, whatever. Okay. So then my sixth favorite, we're getting down to the bottom. And I will say, actually, books 2 through 5, so Simon and Daphne's book, Hyacinth and Gareth's book, Eloise and Philip's book, and then Colin and Penelope's book, those were all pretty close when I was trying to rate them. So, you know, just keep that in mind. And That Kind Who Loved Me is just cut above the rest. My sixth favorite was actually one of my really good friends at work. It is her favorite. And it is When He Was Wicked. And this book is about Francesca. She is a ghost in the show. And I think she was supposed to be more heavily involved in the second season. And then the actress had unfortunately, some other things that she had to do because COVID delayed production of a lot of things. And then they recast her for season 3. So maybe she'll be more involved. But she's also a ghost in the books. She really is never really mentioned. When there's family get-togethers, she's not really there. So it was fine that she didn't, get her story till the last book. This is an interesting story because she got married when she was quite young. And then about a year or two into her marriage, I think it was maybe 2 years, her husband John suddenly died of an aneurysm. And she has to mourn him. And his best friend, Michael, has basically been in love with Francesca since he met her, but he's very loyal. John was Michael's cousin and best friend. So then Michael not only is mourning the loss of his friend, but also he's going to be taking on the title of that John had, and that is too much. And he's basically been coveting, his wife, and he blames himself, like almost like he wished for it, even though he didn't. And so 4 or 5 years pass. Michael is in India, and then he comes home because Francesca's been dealing with a lot of the estate stuff, and he wants her. And she, for the first time, sees him not as her husband's best friend, but as a man who is super hot. He's probably the sexiest, I will say, of all the guys. I think he's probably the sexiest. And then maybe Anthony is up there. Gareth has terrible hair, so I don't know. But yeah, he's like none of these have step backs, which is really, really sad. I need to find the ones with step backs. Anyway, so he kind of starts a seduction campaign, and I wouldn't kind of pressure her, but also I think he knows what she's feeling, and he's trying to show her that it's okay. They can still mourn John. And, what would John have wanted for them? These two people that he loved more than anything. So, it's good. Francesca's very wishy-washy. She can't make up her damn mind, which I can't relate. I've never had a husband die of an aneurysm, and then realized I was kind of falling in love with his best friend / cousin. And, I can't, that's not something I can necessarily relate to, right? But she just could not make up her mind, and Michael is so into her and so sweet about it. And then he's also really into it. They're going to have some sexy times as well. But she drove me nuts, and I felt bad about it. So it's good. I like that the storyline is a little different. She's a widow. They can mess around as much as they want to, because it's not really going to cause an issue. She doesn't want to have a child. She's decided that she wants to get married again, and he's trying to say, hey, marry me instead. So it's okay. It's just not my favorite. So I don't know. Francesca was annoying. I'm so sorry. And then my 7th favorite, or not favorite at all, basically. I don't think I'd reread the bottom 2. I don't think I'd reread. I think I'd reread the rest of them, but I'd feel bad if I didn't reread them. So the one closest to the bottom of the totem pole without being at the bottom is book 3, Benedict's book, and that is An Offer from a Gentleman. It is a Cinderella retelling. It is about Benedict and Sophie. Sophie comes from a different social status, so it is kind of cool that they're covering that. And they meet at a ball, and it's masked, and they have this magical moment, and then she has to leave, and I'm trying to find what I wrote about this. Did I not leave a... there it is. There's just this magical element when they meet for the first time, and I felt like I spent the entire rest of the book looking for it and just couldn't find it. She becomes a maid for him, takes care of him when he's sick, and he wants to keep her with him, maybe as a mistress, but that's not what she wants. And there's this kind of ridiculous thing at the end. She's got this stepmother situation, And I don't know, it just didn't do it for me. And Benedict he didn't have as much of a personality and a character as much as the other guys did. Colin, I love Colin, But, like, he had a very, like, I could spot that guy. Benedict, I think I was also warring with the way that they were playing with presenting him in the show. Because in that first season of the show, there are very heavy, perhaps bisexual undertones. And then in the second season, they just drop it, which, okay, whatever. I realize that we're telling historical romances, and, you know, the likelihood of having a character who's gay in those, especially traditional ones, is pretty low. Although there are quite a few now that have gay characters. There's one that just came out that I'm so excited about that I haven't read yet that has a trans character. I've been not reading it because I'm trying to protect myself from potential pain. But anyway, I don't know. Benedict was boring. Sophie was boring. Not super interesting. And I didn't laugh at all in this. Because they're kind of, like, they're funny books. And the first, like, 4 books, I definitely laughed quite a bit. And then the end of the series, I was just, ugh. No. So, sorry. Not a fan. Not a fan. And then the last one is, of course, the last book in the series, Gregorys Book. And Gregorys Book is really bad. And I think that's some people's favorite book. Sorry. But hey, this is like, remember, we're sharing our opinions. We don't have to agree. Like I said at the beginning, like, I think it's interesting to see what you like more. Gregorys Book was hella boring. And in fact, guys, just check out my reviews on Goodreads if you're interested, because I write way too much on them. But I said, when I say that this book should probably be given 2 stars, I mean it. I read this book on my Kindle, which means I remember exactly how many percentages it took me to find the book interesting. In fact, I can unfortunately say that I wasn't really interested in what was going on until approximately 70% of the way through the book. Yeah. It's basically a house party. And the best part about the book is that you get to see other characters from the previous series. And Kate's in there. It's so great to see her again. But it's basically about Gregory thinking he's in love with this girl at a house party. Turns out, you know, he ends up having a connection instead with Lucy, who is her friend. And it's hella boring and ridiculous. And then to add insult to injury, the first 2/3 are completely outshone by the last third, which is some ridiculous, people have been blackmailed, this guy that Lucy's gonna marry is gay and he doesn't want to get married, but like he's going to because like this whatever, and then like she's gonna get married, and then Gregory's like, oh, but I must be with her, and maybe that sounds romantic. It was terrible. So I felt kind of bad about it. But I think I gave it 3 stars. And weirdly enough, my star ratings thing is very dependent on my mood as well. But if we were going to take a moment and break down why I think I rated them this way, I think I lean more towards the witty repartee. I think I lean more towards also humorous moments. I think I lean more towards characters who have maybe more depth. It didn't feel like the characters in the later books, or in the ones I talked about, had a lot of depth. I like characters who know their own minds and who try to communicate with each other, and that was an issue that When He Was Wicked had. And of course, I have a soft spot for stories that remind me of my own life, and so that is why I like Romancing Mr. Bridgerton. So that's just a little bit about my Bridgerton ratings. I will say, the last book in the series, technically I consider it part of the series, book 9. If you have not read that yet, I saved the second epilogue from each book to read at the end, because that is in the Bridgerton Happily Ever After collection, as well as a novella about Violet. And I really liked reading it that way, so you could revisit every single couple before you finished. And it was a really beautiful way to end the series. So I'd highly recommend, if you have not read this series yet, I would recommend reading them in order. And then at the end of each book, because I think recently they've been republished with the secondary epilogue. Yeah, it'll say the second epilogue. I would save the second epilogue from every book. So here's like an offer from a gentleman. Second epilogue. I would save that and then read the Happily Ever After book, so you can read every single secondary epilogue together and Violet's story, and it's just a really great way to read the series. It's a great series. It really is. I wouldn't have started it any other way. It sets the basis for this world that she's created, and then you can go from there. And so I, from this series, went to the Smythe Smith Quartet. Really loved that series. Then I went to the Rokesbys, which is a Bridgerton prequel series. I really love that series. And now I'm going, and I read What Happens in London? That's a series that I really enjoyed. And I've got maybe 10, 12 books of hers left to read. So that's it. That's all I have for you. I'm so sorry it lasted 31 minutes. You knew it when you showed up. You probably didn't. I'm so sorry. But anyway, that's it. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Please let me know, what is your ranking, if you want to go through and rank in the comments. Do you have an argument that you want to put forth as to why one book should be higher than the other? What's your favorite? What's your least favorite? And if you had to pick a favorite hero, who would it be? That's it. All right. Bye, everybody. Have a good one.